Hi, everybody. It is Wednesday night.
Yep, we're
Just kidding. It is Tuesday night.
I don't know what day it is anymore either.
But look, the thing is right behind us. It says that we're studying John, and that is what we're studying. And so
That's true.
grateful that we are, we got something right. If I don't know what day it is, at least I know what I'm studying. And so we're in John 13 tonight, and just excited about John.
Yeah, I mean, when I was reading it earlier, there's some things in this chapter I was like, really? I never heard, or maybe I just wasn't paying attention, but I was like, I don't remember ever hearing that. So it was new to me.
New to her. You know what? Well, I think it's a lot of times when I'm, or I'm like, really? Is that in John? Oh, I thought that was, yeah. So sometimes it's fun. It's fun to be surprised. And it's fun to learn new things. And hey, Diane Clark is here.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, lovely lady yourself. So we're in the house all together.
I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving.
It is
Holiday.
after Thanksgiving.
I'm still eating Paul's stuffing.
I don't know that we have any left.
It's so good. It's my favorite thing, and I only get it once a year, so I gorge on it for days.
You write your name on it. You're like,
Yep.
Nobody
I
else.
eat it for lunch. I eat it for dinner. Sometimes for breakfast if I'm really sassy.
There you go. It's probably good with eggs. Yeah, it's stuffing, dressing, whatever it is you call it.
So good.
We had a lot of good food, and so Thanksgiving is always it's a favorite. Hopefully it's a favorite of yours too. But it's just really it's nice. It felt almost normal.
Almost normal.
Almost normal. I think my son had a cold, and so everybody's kind of like, what
I wasn't worried.
Anyway, it's just still a little illness, gives you a little cause for concern.
Yeah,
but
when somebody sneezes a couple times in a row,
Yeah,
you're
you're
like,
do you have allergies? But it's not COVID. It was a cold. Imagine that. Those things still exist. Colds still exist and are working their way through our houses, I guess. So there we go. What does Miss Diane say?
Oh, she wants some
Oh.
stuffing. Too bad.
Paul probably make more, but then we would eat it all, and I don't know if that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Rolling here into Christmas, we do have to.
It's bad. I'm going to
into
Hawaii the
something.
end of January, and I'm like, really? Why? What possessed me to do that to myself?
It's okay.
To be in shorts and swimwear right
She
after
looks
the
great.
holidays.
We're fine. And muumuus are always in fashion.
There you go. I think
In
that's
Hawaii,
what I'll be in.
It's fine. It's fine. It's just fine. So yeah. You can diet when you're done with the stuffing.
No. It's
Okay.
gonna probably work. I like
Probably
food.
not.
I like food too much, unfortunately.
And Christmas is upon us, and the Christmas goodies. So there you go. Well, we are in John 13, and it's kind of some big stuff.
Yeah, it's the start of the Last Supper.
Yeah. So
The setting.
yes, very, very interesting. Very, very interesting concepts here. Really, some groundbreaking concepts, meaning like that Jesus once again shows people a different way to be a leader, and not everybody's okay with it, right? People are like, no, you're not doing that. So we can get right into it and see which parts surprised you. I have a part that I read and I was like, what? Hey, that's good. That's good. I like that.
Alrighty, we are starting in verse 1 of John 13. Before the Passover celebration, Jesus knew that his hour had come to leave this world and return to his Father. He now showed the disciples the full extent of his love. It was time for supper, and the devil had already enticed Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to carry out his plan to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had given him authority over everything and that he had come from God and would return to God. So he got up from the table, took off his robe, wrapped a towel around his waist, and poured water into a basin. Then he began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel he had around him. When he came to Simon Peter, Peter said to him, "Lord, why are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You don't understand now why I am doing it. Someday you will." "No," Peter protested. "You will never wash my feet." Jesus replied, "But if I don't wash you, you won't belong to me." Simon Peter exclaimed, "Then wash my hands and head as well, Lord, not just my feet." Jesus replied, "A person who has bathed all over does not need to wash except for the feet to be entirely clean, and you are clean. But this isn't true of everyone here." Ooh.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, for Jesus knew who would betray him. That is what he meant when he said, "Not all of you are clean." After washing their feet, he put on his robe again and sat down and asked, "Do you understand what I am doing? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, because it is true. And since I, the Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash each other's feet. I have given you an example to follow. Do as I have done to you. How true it is that a servant is no greater than the master, nor are messengers more important than the one who sends them. You know these things, now do them. That is the path of blessing. I am not saying these things to all of you. I know so well each of you I chose. The scriptures declare, "The one who shares my food has turned against me," and this will soon come true. I tell you this now, so that when it happens, you will believe I am the Messiah. Truly, anyone who welcomes my messenger is welcoming me, and anyone who welcomes me is welcoming the Father who sent me.
Some good stuff. So, as we know, John always he likes to create time and places, and this is often it's very important, because that way we always know what's going on and where it's going on and what the sequence of events are,
Right.
In things. And so that's what he's saying here. Just before the Passover feast. The Passover feast has been the same in the Jewish calendar for over 4,000 years, because the Jewish calendar didn't start again. They don't have BC and AD. They just have one calendar. And so the Passover is how we find Easter, right? So we do Easter according to the Jewish calendar, or that's where it's found, because it's after Passover. But we know when it was, and so that's always helpful. Thank you, John. And then it says that he knew his time had come for him to leave this world. So, he's known all along, right? Let's not pretend like he doesn't know. But, it's kind of like the wrap up. And clearly he's got like a lesson to teach them here.
Right.
And he's like, hey, he even says, like, after he washes their feet, "Do you know why I did this? Let me tell you why. Let me give you some hints. Let me give you some information." And so that
must have been important. So hard. Like, there's always that question, like, if you could know the date you were going to die, would you want to know? And like, Jesus knows. He knows what's coming. He knows the date of his death.
And how
Yeah.
he's going to die.
It's like, I don't know if I would want to know.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I think that it sounds good, like that sort of thing.
In theory, because then you could like do everything you wanted to do, say goodbye to everyone you wanted to before it. But it would give me a panic attack.
Pretty much.
And anxiety
Pretty much.
and all of that, because you
especially if it's like it's next month. And
yeah,
you're like,
well,
"What?"
there's this, it would be this clock just counting down in my mind every day, and yeah, I don't think I'd want to know.
Yeah, maybe it would help us to live our lives differently, but
Possibly.
yeah, I don't think it's not for us to know, right? It's not for us to know. So, so it's he brings up in verse 2, the devil had already prompted Judas Iscariot, son of Simon, to betray Jesus. So Judas was there, he was in the room, but he was already
in
cahoots.
cahoots? Mm-hmm.
Yes, he was working already with Judas, or Judas was working with him. And so, there may have been 12 disciples and Jesus, but kind of 14 there. Satan was represented, well represented in that room. But it's kind of an interesting thing. It's like, even though you know that there's evil, Jesus knew that there was evil right there. He knew that someone was actively plotting against him. That's unnerving.
Right.
And yet still, he decided to get up and washed all of their feet, Judas included. And this is is like, Jesus, you blow our minds. Like, how, why would you bother? Why don't you just skip over him? And Jesus didn't. And so what a great example he continues to show us, even here, right before his death.
I think in the commentary it had mentioned that it's just kind of a lesson that even if you screw up, which we are all going to do, and God knows we're going to screw up, because he knows what we're going to do.
Yep.
Throughout our life, and he still loves you unconditionally. Still. And there's Jesus washing the feet of the man who's going to betray him.
Yeah, it's not just symbolic, it is Jesus's real ministry. It's the way that he conducts his kingdom and his lordship. And so if we want to really know Jesus, as much as you and I may not want to treat someone nicely who is going to betray us, that's Jesus like, well, that's not how it works, and that's not how I'm doing it, and that's not how I'm showing you to do it either. So
right. And he's also demonstrating being a servant leader.
Yeah, which is different.
Yeah,
which is different than what they've experienced.
Well, exactly, because a person in that kind of stature of a king would have been fawned over by servants. He would have never lowered himself to their level or below their level.
Right.
To, have a king wash a servant's feet, that was unheard of. Why would you do that?
That's crazy. And they even, even like the things that John is explaining, that he took off his coat and he wrapped a towel around his waist, and that is
a servant.
That's a servant. So it's not that he just did what servants do. He actually
dressed
it. Yeah, he took on the whole persona of a servant, and and what king would take off his crown and take off his robes and and put on something that a servant would wear, and then scrub the floors, or it's like it's unheard of. And so that's why this is shocking.
In this time, that would have been a servant's job. Would be if you had guests coming to their home.
Yeah.
The servant would have a basin and would wash the feet of those coming into the home.
Right.
That was the custom of that time. So
dirty roads, sandals.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of rules in the Jewish, in the Jewish life.
Yeah.
Of cleanliness. So there was a lot of rules with that. So
For
that was
sure.
one of them. And so that's where it was symbolic of Jesus to do a servant's job.
That's right. So yeah, very, very interesting. So here comes our friend Peter, and always Peter. God bless you. He is,
He's my favorite.
bless
I
your
love
heart,
him. He's just
Peter.
so human. He says the things I would be thinking and wouldn't say, but he just says it.
He's that kid. He's that kid in class that raises his hand and asks the question.
And you're like, oh my gosh, somebody actually said it out loud.
I was wondering the same thing, but was too embarrassed to say it. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Peter, yes, for sure, rushes up, and like, are you trying to wash my feet? What are you doing right now, teacher, rabbi, Lord, and that's why he's like, oh no,
Mm-hmm.
that's it, because that's beneath Jesus, right? In this culture, that's beneath him. You're not washing my feet. I'm not going to allow you to like humble yourself to a position beneath me.
Mm-hmm.
But then Jesus says, unless I wash you, you have no part with me.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't talking about washing his feet, He was talking about a little bit more. In the commentary, it says he may have meant that unless he washed away Peter's sins by his death, right, on the cross, that Peter could have no relationship with him, clearly. And then the second one it may have meant is that unless Peter submitted to him and allowed Jesus to minister in this way, Peter would never learn the lesson of humility.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe it's both and. But once he said that, Peter, he clicked right in. He was like, oh, well, okay. Well, if that's it, then, then I'll take the full body. I'll take, then don't stop at my feet, Lord. I want all of it. And
it's like he almost wanted to be like baptized again, basically.
Yes. He's like, pull the basin. Let's get more water in here. I'm going for a scrub. And but because he's just excitable. Peter's just always overboard.
Yeah, he's
literally sometimes.
Yeah, he's like he's the extreme.
Yes.
He always seems like I think he's always trying to prove his faith or prove his loyalty.
Yes, that could be. I don't, how do you guys see Peter? Do you see him as just like a, just super extreme, super crazy, super, I know somebody kind of like this. I mean, I too am like this sometimes, but I know somebody like this who's kind of boisterous and always asking and always like, and I just laugh because, a lot of times I'm like, oh yeah, this person just reminds me of Peter or vice versa. Hey, there you go. I think that's Rich. You got your glasses on?
Oh, it says good gravy. Hello, girls. Nice to see you both. Ciao.
Ciao. Hola, Rich. So,
well, we're speaking different languages.
Yes.
3 different languages.
Bonjour and guten Tag. All right, there you go. But yeah, I mean, even crazy for the Lord. That's right. Peter was crazy for the Lord. So, and Rich sometimes. Rich, you're crazy for the Lord. Rich loves to. He's that guy. I talk about you because you're commenting here, but Rich asks great questions too, and some and sometimes he'll say, was that a stupid question or whatever, and I'm like, dude, if you wanted to ask that question, probably somebody else was wondering the same thing.
Yeah,
is what I'm trying to say. He said, "Merci beaucoup." There you go. There we go. I think he's combining French and Indian or something, but
French and Southern.
So, yeah, maybe, I don't know.
Or and what is it? Creole.
Creole. That's right. Yeah. Well, beaucoup is Beaucoup, right? You barely pronounce any of those letters. Anyway, back to Peter. He was the funny guy, and so he was a funny guy. So we've got
littles.
We've got we got a great crowd here. We've got a great crowd. Half the size of normal. but great crowd. So anyway, so Jesus starts talking about a bath, and he says, he's talking about being clean, but he says, though not every one of you. So there he is, like slipping a little dig into Judas again. He's like, yeah, but not all of you. Judas, you know I'm talking to you. Judas was probably just like boiling over with guilt.
Like, could you just imagine? I would just be like,
right? Yeah, when you pass that note in class, and the teacher knows it, and she's like dropping hints and like making eye contact with you. Oh, you're like, after class, I'm in for it. I am dead meat. But, you know.
Let's see. Diane said, Peter is a fun guy who loves this Lord.
He is fun. He is fun.
He is fun.
He's kind of crazy.
Cracks me up. I always giggle.
Everybody else, you know, is saintly sometimes. I mean, you know, John and his brother, you know, James, they sometimes, you know, the sons of thunder.
Yeah.
Right? You know, sometimes they were a little, you know, like, hey, who's getting on the right and who's getting on the left? And, you know, and let me bring my mom in to ask about me, you know, like there were other people who were, you know, a little bit exciting sometimes too. But Peter was officially, I think, like the mouthpiece for all crazy stuff. Peter can't wait to meet you in person in heaven. There you go. Face to face. So let's see. So he's just talking about the servant is not greater than the master, right? The messenger is not greater than the one who sent him. So it's, you know, kind of interesting. It's this humility that he's like clearing the playing field. But he also says in verse 19, I'm telling you now, before it happens, well, he's talking about Judas back in 18, so that when it happens, you will believe that I am he. I am the Messiah. And I tell you the truth, whoever accepts anyone I send accepts me. Whoever accepts me accepts the one who sent me. So this is important because, you know, he's talking about these connections that we need to have with him and the connections we need to have with God. So there you go. Hear this rumbling on the stairs here. All right. Anything else about foot washing?
No, we did one of the Maundy Thursday.
Yep.
Is what we call it in I don't know if everybody calls it the same thing, but that's what we called it in the Lutheran Church. And there was one time our pastor at the time, he washed
everybody's feet.
Not everyone, but there was like a certain few he had told beforehand that's what he was going to be doing. But
clip your nails, we're gonna wash.
But I remember as a child, I still remember that.
It's a big deal, right? It's not, you know, you could say a lot of things, but not a lot of pastors actually do it, right? So maybe it's because we're not Jesus, but
it was Pastor Kepke, Mom, if you remember that too.
Pastor Kepke, there you go. So he's a good old-fashioned foot washer. Hallelujah. So
alrighty, we are going to move on to verse 21 of John 13. Now Jesus was in great anguish of spirit, and he exclaimed, "The truth is, one of you will betray me." The disciples looked at each other, wondering whom he could mean. One of Jesus' disciples, the one Jesus loved, was sitting next to Jesus at the table. Simon Peter motioned to him to ask who would do this terrible thing. Leaning towards Jesus, he asked, "Lord, who is it?" Jesus said, "It is the one to whom I give the bread dipped in the sauce." And when he had dipped it, he gave it to Judas, son of Simon Iscariot. As soon as Judas had eaten the bread, Satan entered into him. Then Jesus told him, "Hurry, do it now." None of the others at the table knew what Jesus meant. Since Judas was their treasurer, some thought Jesus was telling him to go and pay for the food or to give some money to the poor. So Judas left at once, going out into the night. And so this is where I was like, huh? I've never heard this before. And it's verse 26 that Jesus said, "It is the one to whom I give the bread dipped in the sauce." And I'm like, I don't think I ever heard that before.
It's different, in each of the Gospels.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I think I have like a comparison here. It's a little bit different in all the Gospels. Same guy, that's definitely not it. But Luke 20, sorry, hold on. But I should have looked that up beforehand. Anyway, sorry about that. But it's a little bit different each time. He doesn't say in every gospel, hey, it's the guy that I'm gonna, and my question is, well, if he said that, and this is sometimes that what happens with Jesus, like he says, it's gonna be this way, and then people are like, what? And it's just like, no, he said it's the guy. So then why did they all think that he was going to, pay for supper or
that's what I was like, huh? It says, and when he dipped it, he gave it to Judas. And he,
right?
like the verse, that's the end of the verse. It's like, he just said, it is the one to whom I give the bread dipped in the sauce. And he dipped it and gave it to Judas. And nobody put two and two together?
They're like, oh, okay. Oh, hey, he's going to pay for dinner. Hey.
That's where I was like, okay, I've never heard of this before, because I think that would have stuck with me had I, heard it and been like, wait a second.
So I think this is the only gospel where he actually mentions this. If you guys want to look it up, there's sometimes I have it in my Bible, and it is called, hold on, The Harmony of the Gospels. And so it talks about like, oh yeah, in Matthew, it talks about this in Matthew 5 and in Luke 3 and, in John this. And so, and remember, John was written long after all of these things were. And so, sorry. So it says that when he washes the disciples' feet, that is actually only in the book of John. And so, but Jesus and the disciples have the Last Supper. That's in all of them. So we do know that. Oops, I just lost my page. So
see, 1327, like because in our Bible, I don't know if you can see this or not. On the side, it'll tell you where it is in other books, if that makes sense.
Yeah, do you guys have that kind of like indexing or something?
So it doesn't say anything for verse 26 that it's anywhere else, but verse 27 is in Luke.
Yeah, so it only, Jesus, the Last Supper is in all of them.
It is in all of them, but it's talking about the whole Judas thing. It looks like it was...
and declaring.
Yeah, it doesn't look like that specific dipping in the sauce thing is in the other ones, but I guess the reference to Judas...
He does call it out, right?
Oh yeah.
And then in other hold on,
Let's see, it's Luke 23:3. I'll look it up real quick.
There we go. So and obviously in verse 27 he says, what you're about to do quickly. So he, he's looking at Judas and going like, I know what you're going to do, dude. Go. And
yeah, it says then Satan, this is in Luke chapter 22 verse 3, then Satan entered into Judas Iscariot, who was one of the 12 disciples, and he went over to the leading priest. So that's all it says, is that the devil entered him. And that's what John says as well.
Yeah, and he says it here. So it's, it says it's in our commentary. I thought this was really great, that just because Satan is entering him, it doesn't take away Judas's responsibility for this. Judas somehow got disillusioned, right? He misunderstood, and I think that it says this here in our commentary. It says Jesus was talking about dying rather than setting up his kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
and so Judas knows that Jesus has power, right? He knows that he's divine. He knows that he's special, whatever it is that you want to say, right? And so the thought is that Judas was actually trying to force his hand,
Mm-hmm.
right? And make him use his power to prove he's the Messiah, to set up the kingdom that everybody was expecting, right? The kingdom here on earth, where Jesus would come in, white horse, overthrow Rome and put, the Jewish people as the leaders of the free world. So Judas was mistaken.
Right.
He was mistaken, and maybe he didn't understand that it was going to go that far. However,
he made choices. He made choices. He knew what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
He made choices, and he suffered the consequences of those choices. And that's something that I think doesn't happen nowadays. And
Consequences.
yeah, there, and I mean, you see it in all levels. I mean, you see it in your own families,
Mm-hmm.
and all the way through to the government. I mean, and there's just such an abundance of nobody being held accountable for their actions that it's just frustrating.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
It's frustrating. I mean, obviously, I get frustrated for a little bit,
You're
like, ugh. But
okay.
I always remember that I am not the judge. They will have to answer for everything they've done before God. And I have comfort in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have comfort in that. And then I'm like, oh, God will take care of them. God will take care of it. God will take care of them. I'm not going to worry and be frustrated about it.
Yes, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And so he is the one who does who does right the wrongs, and in a lot of times in the timing and the ways that we do not understand.
Right. And you may not see it. You may not,
right.
Yeah,
you may not see it.
It may not happen. The reckoning may not happen in your time frame, but I take solace in knowing it will happen. They are going to have to stand before God in judgment and answer for what they have done.
Yeah.
Just like I will. Just like all of us will.
Just like I will.
So
that's right.
You need to be careful.
Yeah. I mean, I think, we've so, we've put so much on Judas, and we almost forget that he's human.
Right.
And again, I'm not taking away from what it is that he did. It was awful what he did. It was also prophesied, but it was awful. Mm-hmm. It was the most awful. I mean, it was awful. But I think we've kind of dehumanized him, and it's like, oh, he just got in cahoots with the devil, whatever. But, here in the commentary, when it talks about he was disillusioned, he wanted his way. Mm. And, the idea that he could pressure Jesus or force anybody or pressure anybody, right, into his way, his time, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I think we've all been guilty of that, pressuring people into what it is that we think is the solution.
Right.
And I know that is definitely, Judas had an idea of how things were supposed to go. And I think he thought he was calling Jesus's hand.
Well, and I mean, we'll get into it a little bit further, but eventually I think he realizes, and he realizes the gravity of what he's done.
He did at the end.
Yes. I mean, he did come to oh my, what have I done?
What have I done? Yeah.
And the shame of that.
Yeah. But, it's, Satan was excited because, Satan is thinking that Jesus' death will ruin God's plan.
Right.
But Judas didn't understand, and Satan didn't understand that Jesus' death was the plan.
Mm-hmm.
It was the plan. It was the sacrifice that was required. And so
Right. It had to happen.
it had to happen. And I mean, if I was alive in that, I would have totally missed that. I would have been like,
Mhm.
what? That
Mhm.
what? And how many times did he say it?
Yeah.
He said it. He said it. I'm going to die and be raised again in 3 days. Like he actually said, I am going to die.
Multiple times.
But yeah, that's not the plan. That's a stupid plan. You were going to set us up with a nice castle or whatever.
And they're like, yeah,
throne.
I'm sure you're going to die like when you're 120.
Sure,
You'll
we're all
be
gonna
fine.
die. Yeah. So yeah, but so just very interesting. And of course, Jesus saying what you're about to do quickly. You would have thought that Judas would have been like, "Duh, he knows. Like, anyway, he didn't stop him. It didn't stop him. And again, no one at the meal. Verse 27, 28. No one at the meal understood why Jesus said this to him. So, and clearly they missed the whole bread dipping thing. Yeah. Anyway, it's like it was only Jesus and Judas in the room at that point. But we'll give them the credit here. You know what it's like in dinner parties. Sometimes there's a lot going on. So
true.
Maybe he missed it. So, but here we go. Jesus has got some more predictions here.
Yep, he has something for Peter. We are in verse 31 of John 13. As soon as Judas left the room, Jesus said, "The time has come for me, the Son of Man, to enter into my glory, and God will receive glory because of all that happens to me, and God will bring me into my glory very soon. Dear children, how brief are these moments before I must go away and leave you. Then, though you search for me, you cannot come to me, just as I told the Jewish leaders. So now I am giving you a new commandment. Love each other just as I have loved you. You should love each other. Your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples." Simon Peter said, "Lord, where are you going?" And Jesus replied, "You can't go with me now, but you will follow me later." "But why can't I come now, Lord?" he asked. "I am ready to die for you." Jesus answered, "Die for me? No. Before the rooster crows tomorrow morning, you will deny 3 times that you even know me."
Peter.
Dun, dun, dun.
That's right.
Peter going to the extreme again. I'll die for you.
I'll die for you. Yes, he's the Academy Award goes to Peter for the beautiful acting performance. Yeah, but I'm sure he absolutely meant it.
I'm convinced he full-fledged believed every word he was saying. He believed it.
Yeah. Sorry, I have a tiny little pin here. I believe, but it's Jesus is talking about things that sometimes I think Jesus says things, it's like for our benefit, but it wasn't for theirs. So it's, it's like da 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 da, and they're like, did you understand what he said? Like, what? Now the Son of Man is glorified and God is glorified. If God is glorified, then God will glorify the Son and I will go glorify, and they're just like, what are you talking about? And then he says, I gotta go. You'll look for me, but you
can't come with me.
Yeah. And I mean, I know this isn't the first time that Jesus has it must be like he's speaking in code or something.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'm like, if I was in the room, what would I think about that after seeing miracles and learning so much and just going, wait, so what did I miss? Where is it? So sweet Peter, everybody in the room was probably wondering what it was that Jesus was saying. And Peter was the kid in the room. His hand shoots up. He's going to ask the question that everybody else wants to ask, but doesn't. Where are you going? Where are you going? I don't understand. Like, are you staying somewhere else? Are you going to a different country? Like, are we going? And so obviously these were things that they didn't necessarily understand where I'm going. You cannot follow now, but you will follow later. He's talking about his death, his resurrection. Um, and then sweet Peter, made his proclamation, and I absolutely believe that he meant it, but it was also short-lived, because as we'll learn in these next chapters, that it was a tiny little maid, a tiny little servant girl, was the like, wasn't even like some guy with a sword who made him, or who asked him if he knew Jesus, and then he's like, no, he's gonna hurt me. No, it's just a tiny little servant girl that said, weren't you with Jesus? And Peter's like, oh, tiny little servant girl knows who I am. No, I'm not. So
this always reminds me, the whole imagery of Peter and him denying Jesus. I always think about, obviously us in the United States don't understand, I think, the depth of that, because we are free to worship.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah, for the most part.
For the most part.
I can go right now. I can,
Yeah,
I can
for the
sing
most
right
part.
now. Yeah.
I mean, we are free to do that, but in so many other places in the world, it is a death sentence to say you are a Christian, to say you are a believer.
Mhm.
And so I always think about those people when the whole Peter denying Jesus. That's what I think is like, what would I, I've obviously only ever lived here. I've never been under persecution in regards to my religion and my faith. And what would, if and when it ever came to the United States, that kind of persecution, what would I be willing to give? Would I be willing to give my life? And would I be willing to give up my home, my comfort, my life?
Mm-hmm.
It's just a question I think everybody should really think about. It's you think, oh, come on, Peter.
Yeah.
How could you deny him? Come on. But I mean, when this happens, he's just saw Jesus be, taken away.
Yeah.
And he's standing before the Jewish council of, priests and stuff, and having a somewhat hush trial.
Well, Peter was afraid.
And he's scared.
He's
scared.
Yeah.
He's scared what's going to happen to him. Is he going to be thrown in jail? Is he going to be killed? What's going to happen? And so therefore, that's what I think of when we talk about
deny. Yeah, because again,
denial.
We always say, oh, I would never.
Right.
I would never. But what if it cost you everything?
Right. And for so many people, it does. I mean, to be honest, just what happened in Afghanistan, we know for a fact that Christians were martyred and they were killed. They were hunted down and they were killed.
Yeah.
And we know because it's been reported, and there are, Christian networks that have said,
confirmed it.
Yeah, that they know that they were killed. These people were killed. So
yeah.
It happens every day. It happens in our world, and we really should be mindful of that.
Yeah.
That it's not so far back in time. It's still happening today.
Yeah, it's I mean, the globe is not that big anymore when we can just get on an airplane and
No, and I mean it happens a great deal in the continent of Africa.
Sure.
It happens a lot. I know it happens in a lot, like Indonesia area as well.
Myanmar and and in China, of course.
Yeah.
And North Korea. Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of places.
Think
that it's not okay.
They have to go underground, and it's like, would you do that? If you're a Christian,
would you become a fugitive?
If you're a true follower of Christ, that's what He would ask of you.
Mm-hmm.
Are you willing to do that?
Yeah.
So
Jesus said, "Will you really lay down your life for me?" Right in verse 38. I tell you the truth, right? You won't, Peter. You won't.
At this point,
Right.
Peter wasn't spiritually ready.
Mm-mm.
And Jesus knew that.
Jesus knew.
Later,
oh yeah,
he grows into his faith. And
Day of Pentecost, he preaches a great sermon and brings thousands of people to the Lord. But it says in Romans 12:3, Paul tells us that we ought not to think of ourselves more highly than we are. We shouldn't, again say, I would never do that. Instead of bragging, demonstrate your commitment step by step as you grow in the knowledge of God's word and in your faith. And that probably would have been the better thing for Peter to do. But again, it's Peter.
Right.
And if somebody's going to make an exclamation or, or an outburst, it's going to be him. But, we too can hold on and maybe not make these grandiose gestures, like just show people your faith step by step, day by day. We all want to be in the front of the parade and say, I'm the best of this or I'm the best of that. But Jesus is saying, wash people's feet.
Yeah.
And just be obedient every single day.
And love them.
We passed over that.
Yeah, we did pass over
that. Verse 34.
The new commandment.
That's right. New. Love one another. So love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. And so by this, all men, the whole world will know that you are my disciples, is if you love one another.
If you do that, right? If you do that, all of the other commandments fall into place.
Because you won't murder, you won't cheat, you won't lie, you won't covet, you won't
steal.
Yeah,
because you wouldn't do that to yourself. So why would you do it unto another person? So that's why it's they say the golden rule and all of that, but it is the best commandment,
scriptural
because
basis. Yeah,
if you do that, if you truly do that, all of the other commandments and obedience that needs to be, done.
Love God and love one another.
Yeah.
That
if you do those two things, all the other things,
it'll all shake out, including like the commandment to go and make disciples, right? Because if you love people, you will want to make sure that they're in heaven with you.
Right.
If you don't love them, you don't care where they're going to be, right? But if you love them, you will care, and you will care how they live their life. And so you will tell them about Jesus. So yeah, like you said, Jen, it's love God and love one another. And that's
when people try to make it so hard, like, okay, what do I have to do?
Yeah. Love
God and love people or do unto others how you would have them do unto you.
Yeah, love them. So
those, it's pretty simple.
It's funny how it's not that complicated, right?
We like to make things complicated.
Yes,
humans like to make things complicated, and it really isn't. And obviously, we've gone through what? Matthew, Mark, Luke, we're through John 2, throughout all those gospels, Jesus made it pretty simple. We just couldn't get it because we made it more complicated.
Yes.
We made it more complicated.
We made it more complicated. So let's dumb it down for the folks in the back and the folks in the front. Let's just love God and love one another and do like Jesus did. So Jesus washed feet and said, love one another.
But he didn't say it would be easy.
No.
There's nothing in it
never
about
said that, yeah.
Nothing in there that it's going to be simple to do those things.
No.
But if you are a true follower, your actions and how you treat others should reflect Jesus Christ.
There you go. So that is closing my Bible. You guys ready? Closing it. So we're so grateful that you're here with us. We're done a few minutes early, but we could tell you some stuff that's coming up, so do not miss. Don't don't miss tomorrow night.
Are you going to be on tomorrow night?
Yeah, I think so.
Aren't you at your conference tomorrow?
Oh, I'm going to a conference right after.
Okay.
I'm leaving for a conference right after Bible study tomorrow night. So come and find out where we are and find out what we're teaching and what we're studying and study with us and help us, help teach us in the comments. That'd be great. And then Thursday night is Genesis, and that is always a lot of fun with Pastor Dan and Pastor Gay.
Mm-hmm.
Sunday is our worship service, and so that's at 5:00, and we would love for you to join us. And then the following week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 7.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty easy. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 7. So we would love it if you would join us. Thank you so very much for hanging in there with us tonight. So
see you
we are going to
next week.
See you next week. Thanks, you guys. Be blessed.
Bye.